Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
And welcome to Miss Cleo Storytelling Corner and our new website, and we're just a brand new program now. acquainted.org. Remember that. We're gonna start today. It's Black History Month, which annoys me very much. At Cull Books, it's Black History Year every day of the month. You can find our history. And today, this is part of our Black History Month at Cull Books. We're going to do Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. DeGruy Leary. And I just found her so fascinating when I went on my went on her website and heard her speak. It was just such a wonderful thing, and she integrates our history into our behavior, and it's amazing the things that we take for every day, where we got them from. And I'm just going to do a little bit today, and want you to know that we're going to have a program on the last Saturday of February, and we're going to be reading this book, and I'll give you those exact dates next week, because right now I've been running around and dates and times have just skipped my mind, so I am terribly sorry for that. But I just want you to maybe go on Dr. Leary's website and see what she is all about. And it says, since I'm going to do a little bit of the introduction. Sankofa, return and get it. We must return and claim our past in order to move toward our future. It is in understanding who we were that we will free us to embrace who we now are. And she took a trip to Africa, South Africa. And she was very, very moved by it. And when she got back, she was sort of remembering all of her activities and what she had learned in Africa, sort of reminiscing. And she was sort of back, not really paying attention to the now, but paying more attention to what she had experienced. And she gave us several short synopses, and just the first one that I want to talk to you about is one day her daughter ran into the house and she said, "Hey, Ma, come out, because somebody wanted to beat up her brother, and then he wanted to pee on the car." So she knew she had to go out. So she went out and she said to this young man that she obviously knew by his stance was the leader, and says, "Is there something you want to tell me about my son?" And he said, "Who he looking at?" And she said, "What did you say?" I said, "What he looking at? Who, he got eyeball problems?" And she said, "Well, maybe he wanted to invite you to play basketball, because see, we got a basketball net up there in the yard. Maybe he wanted to invite you in for your his video game, and maybe he wanted to take a walk down to the park and thought he might invite you. He said, all right, lady, don't get so deep. It ain't all that. But she wondered why this young man was so angry. And she had just come from Africa, and they had said, they greeted each other, the young man saying, I see you. I see you. And what was that greeting so different from the greeting that this young man had? And she writes a little bit about that, and I'm going to read you a little bit about it, where she says, the daughter runs in and says, there's a boy outside who is threatening to beat up Nam, and he said he's going to pee on the car. She said, what? And her daughter was all out of breath. Well, she finally got up, as I told you. They were facing my son, who stood alone. I identified the boy standing directly in front of my son as the instigator and asked, is there something that my son has done that you would like to tell me about? The young boy, rather stout and angry, little boy, responded, as I said, what's he looking at? And she responded, as I just spoke to you, as I just told you. And she paused for a moment, considering what he had said, and then responded. And she tells him about the basketball and the attendo, and maybe he wanted to take him to the park. And the little boy said, well, lady, it's not that deep. And she finally settled that down. After the boys walked away, it dawned on me that there was a stark contrast between this experience and the one in South Africa, where the young African males greeted each other with a common phrase, the two statements, the friendly acknowledgement, I see you, and the angry menacing, what you looking at? I went back inside and continued thinking about what had just happened. As I sat in my living room, I recalled other incidents that at the time I thought to be nothing out of the ordinary. In considering how we as humans arrive at our self-concept or self-esteem, this statement seemed up the role that significant others play in our sense of worth. I am not who I think that I am, and I am not who you think that I am. I am who I think that you think that I am. What has happened to this little boy's ego integrity? And why was he so mad at my son, who is black like him? My belief is that the little boy does not hold the same anger toward white people because they do not know who he is, nor can they really see who he is. He was, however, mad at black people, like my son, who can see the emptiness in him, his vacant esteem, his question, what you looking at? Implied that whatever he thought that my son was looking at was worthy of him beating their hand bloody for it. Now, in the light of my experience in Africa, I began to examine other events involving African Americans that I previously had taken for granted. I recall being at a local school parents' meeting where I overheard a conversation occurring between two mothers. One of the mothers was black and the other white. Their children were classmates and played sport together at school. The black mother commented on the achievement of the white mother's child, saying, "Your son is really coming along." The white mother responded with pride, "Thank you. He is quite the man. He's in the talented and gifted program here at the school. And as you know, he's playing well in Little League. He has really excelled this year. He's just like his father. Now, the white mother went on for some time singing the praises of her child. When she finished, she turned her attention to the black mother's child, remembering how exceptional he was, and said, "Your son is also doing quite well, I hear." Before she could finish her statement, the black mother said, who too was clearly proud of her little boy, said, "Oh, girl, he's such a mess at home. Sometimes I could just strangle him." Any of that familiar? Then there was a time at the local bank. When I arrived, I noticed there were lots of people in line waiting to see the teller. There was a black mother in line with 3 small children. The children were standing close to her, so close, in fact, they were actually holding on to her leg. Occasionally, one of the children would become curious about something or someone in the bank and attempt to explore the object or person. However, any effort to leave the mother's side resulted in a sharp verbal chastisement and a snap of her fingers to immediately get back to her side. In the same line, toward the back, there was another mother, standing in line waiting for an available teller. Only she was white. The white mother also had several small children close in age to the black mother's children. The mother had her hands full trying to stay in line while her little boy wandered about, skipping, twirling, rolling on the floor, and asking questions of the bank security guard. The white mother did not insist that her children stand by her side. Instead, she tried to keep an eye on them and apologized to the people in line who her children were annoying. I remember when I was a child being in the bank and other places of business with my mother and experiencing the same phenomenon of watching the white kids play while my mother insisted that I stay near her. Watching the repeat of my experience, I wonder how the little black girl who stood in the bank line felt while she watched the white boy run and play in the bank. I suspect she felt a number of emotions: fear of the consequences she might receive from disobeying her mother, shame from the curious looks of her white peers, anger at not being able to move about freely. Without explicitly saying so, the black mother sent a message to her children, and the message was, "Little white children can safely run and play, but you cannot, because it is not okay or safe for you." These experiences teach black children that somehow this world does not belong to black boys and girls, but does belong to the little white children. Eventually, a teller became available, and the black mother approached the counter. This was the perfect time for the little black girl to escape. She began sliding down the length of the counter, hidden from her mother's sight, because she was just small enough to fit underneath the overarching counter. It was then that the little black girl felt free to explore, a natural tendency for children at her developmental stage. But she was faced with another dilemma. There was another black mother waiting in line that saw her down beneath the counter and out of her mother's vision. Then the other black mother did something that is all too familiar to African American children. She gave the little girl attempted escape to black mother's death stare. and gestured with a slight move of her head for her to return to her mother's side. The little black girl immediately recognized the signal, looked defeated, lowered her head, and reluctantly returned to her mother's side. The black woman in line smiled contentedly because she had successfully assisted the black mother by non-verbally reinforcing the unspoken rule that little black children can't move about and stray. This was not a place for them to explore. Moreover, it is a world that belongs to the little white boys and girls and those like them who freely and contently may stroll about banks and other places of importance, oblivious to any possible restraint or limitation that may be imposed upon them. On another occasion, I was one of several hundred African Americans attending a cultural recognition ceremony when I heard people commenting on how someone they knew had just gotten a promotion. Well, with this, I'm going to just read you the last paragraph of this introduction to Dr. Perry's book. The primary purpose of this book is to encourage Black Africans to view their attitudes, assumptions, and behaviors through the lens of history and so gain a great understanding of the impact centuries of slavery and oppression has had on our lives. With this understanding, we can explore the role our history has played in the evolution of our thoughts and feelings about who and what we are, as well as our belief about how we are to behave. While it is true that some of this evolution has resulted in behaviors that have become both destructive and I can't do that word. So destructive, we'll just leave it there. It is also encouraging that in spite of the oppressive conditions our ancestors endured, they were able to pass on their phenomenal powers and resilience and adaptability. It is essential that we build up these strengths in ways that will sustain and advance future generations. In this way, we can begin the healing. Dr. Joyce Clary, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, a wonderful book. Every African American should get this book. You may not agree with everything, but you will certainly recognize our behaviors in this book and how we can change those behaviors into positive ways for our children. Thank you for being with me. I'm Miss Cleo Duke-Wright. You have a wonderful week. Read a little, write a little, and listen for our Afro-American month at Cull Books. Take care.